Such a long time since I saw you. Ooh, baby, yeah. You say ain't no harm, no moments of time. Oh, Lord, but like you give me feel like me. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's go behind the scenes a little. My next two projects are focused on screenwriting problems, because at the moment it's the main part of films I'm digging into. Now, if story is king, and all directorial and stylistic choices are made to support the narrative, then I wish I'd spent more time reading and writing as a young child. Now let's back up a little bit. So this is where I live. This is where I make videos. This is where I brainstorm. But before I got comfortable working from home, I had so many fears and inner conflicts about creative work, like writing, and I was convinced that I could only write in a change of environment.
Get out of town. I didn't know you did anything creative. Let me read something.
Oh, no. I never let anybody read my stories.
Why not?
Well, what if they didn't like them? What if they told me I was no good? I guess that would be pretty hard for somebody to understand.
So this is where I'd go. I'd order some green tea, I'd eat some food, I'd sit cross-legged, and then I'd get to work. So what did I write about? Let's have a look through my old notebooks. Films, exercise, work, relationships, weaknesses, personal battles, diet, video plannings. Going back to the 17th of June 2014, this was day one of my first ever journal entry. I was attempting my first ever morning pages, an idea I found on the Tim Ferriss podcast.
If you're looking for a formula for greatness, the closest we'll ever get, I think, is this. Consistency driven by a deep love of the work.
And then followed up the research leading to Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. The basic premise of the exercise is wake up and write 2 full pages of A4. Write it longhand. Don't stop, don't think, don't judge yourself or edit. Don't let your ego get a chance to step in, just write. Practice the process of getting what's in your mind onto paper. Now, I've heard people describe thinking on the page, but it didn't really become clear to me until I'd done about 50 plus entries. Now, I've drifted away from the structure of morning pages and used journaling more loosely whenever I've had things on my mind that needed unpacked. Now, this is the most helpful tool I've found for detailing and examining my inner life. And a crucial part is that it's never to be fully shared, never to be judged by others, only as a personal exercise for your own sense of peace and benefit. Another game changer was a tweet I sent to Brian Koppelman, and a great response. I'd heard him describe his process of free writing and how it opened up his world, and I was curious as to how it worked, and I thought I could see the potential in it.
The first screenplay my partner and I wrote was rejected by every agency as unsellable. It was Rounders.
So I asked him, when you free write, is it personal and reflective, or is it thoughts on a project or a script, etc. Thanks. He replied, both, either, neither, true free writing.
Writing a first draft can be a fragile thing. Don't sabotage yourself by talking to people who don't share your dreams.
Now, I don't know about you, but as soon as I heard that, it freed me to take away any structure or subcategories and just write. It was almost a mental barrier that I'd overcame through his permission, which I didn't even realize I needed.
Whenever you come in here and interrupt me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me. And it will then take me time to get back to where I was. Understand?
So now I free write in the mornings. It's helping my work, but more than that, as cheesy as it sounds, it's helping me understand myself better.
Know this. Whatever your favorite movie is, at some point during the writing of it, the screenwriter felt completely lost. When you write every day, you're not just building up discipline. You're engaging your subconscious, so it's doing work even when you're not sitting there.
But let's get back to film. This is what my journey looks like so far. I loved films, so I first started to study film theory because it was visual, so entertaining to me. And then I realized that story really was king, and so I'm really tackling and trying to understand story at the moment. Now, I've always been into studying, and this is where I built up my original notes and lessons that I took from films when I first started to take this seriously. Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain is a story centered on Tommy as he learns to accept his fate of inevitable death. Over the years, a lot of this information is now in my head, but I keep anything new I discover or hear. Now this is how I've been tackling the 3-act structure. Not saying that it's the be-all and end-all, but the old saying of you can't really change the form until you really master the form itself seems to have some truth to it. I find it easier to think by drawing things and writing things to see the big picture, so this is where I brainstorm and plan ahead here. I also keep all my notes on Evernote. It's my new favourite friend for note-taking, so I can keep and have access to it in all forms. Now I also keep the audio of films on my phone, so I can listen to films anywhere, and part of hearing the sound design and the dialogue and even the music can't always give you the setting of the scene, but it always reveals the emotion of the scene.
So watch a master at work. The master? Punxsutawney Phil, the world's most famous weatherman, the groundhog, who, as legend has it, can predict the coming of an early spring. So I guess the question we have to ask ourselves today is, does Phil feel lucky?
Now, movies themselves are usually visual and easy to consume, but are really the finished products of a lot of moving parts. So I've been forcing myself to read more scripts. So I keep a bundle here. I get no pleasure in reading the text of a film, but I'm learning that it really is the blueprint of the film. And Michael Clayton was probably the best I've read. The film itself seems like it was found in the editing, the intercutting, the cross-cutting, the voiceover montages and monologues, but it's all pre-visualized in the script. So as much as I've struggled with sitting down and forcing myself to work because of inner doubt or fear or any number of reasons, I'm really beginning to trust this writing process. Now, John Cleese was very helpful in overcoming some of the anxiety around writing.
My work was more creative than his simply because I was prepared to stick with the problem longer. So imagine my excitement when I found that this was exactly what McKinnon found in his research. He discovered that the most creative professionals always played with the problem for much longer before they tried to resolve it, because they were prepared to tolerate that slight discomfort and anxiety that we all experience when we haven't solved a problem.
Now, writing is something I've struggled with since school, and I've never had any real natural talent awards.
Oh, I'll read it as soon as I get home.
Well, I'd really like to know what you think. Why don't you go in the bedroom and take a look? Oh, wait. Go ahead.
But these forms of writing are slowly becoming more natural and easier, and I get joy from making some progress in tackling a major imbalance in my ambition to make great films.